speak. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction. I'm going to let him mostly introduce himself. So you can more than welcome to come on up. But he is a 3-term state representative in the state of Indiana and is now a current sitting state senator in District 13 and is a local guy as well. I've talked to him a few times. Absolutely terrific and wonderful family. And no further ado, if I can introduce Mr. Marlin Stutzman and his wife, Christy.
Good evening. Just real quick, I want to introduce my family. This is my wife, Christy, and our son, our 8-year-old son, Peyton, and our 3-year-old son, Preston. And they all... We believe that we live in the greatest country in the world, and one of the things that always just makes this father so proud is when we're traveling down the road and this little guy will see an American flag and he'll go, "Oh yeah, America!" Thank you. All right, but it's this is really the reason why we are in politics and why we first decided to run for office. It's because of our 2 little boys. Christy and I, we were married in 2000, and about 2001, or we were down in, Peyton was born in August 23rd, and we went down to Florida to show off the baby and to show Grandma the baby, and while we were down there, September 11th happened. And we sat there that day holding this little baby boy in our hands and thinking, this little guy has his whole life in front of him. We've seen all these changes in the last 50 years. What are the next 50 years going to bring? And right then, Christy and I decided, I don't know how we're going to get involved, but we're going to get involved one way or another. And we just felt so impressed that day that our country was going to be different. We didn't know how exactly. We knew that day that we loved America. We were going to fight for America. But we didn't know what was going to happen in the future. And we felt, you know what? For us to make a difference, we had to get involved now, and at that time. And so we got back home and we started getting involved in the Young Republicans in LaGrange County. That's where we're from. I've come from a family farm, a 4th-generation farmer over in LaGrange County. And I went and talked to my dad one night after a Republican meeting, and I said, hey, you know, with everything that's going on, Christy and I feel like we need to somehow get involved, and we were at a Republican meeting, and they said they're looking for somebody to run for state representative in District 52. And we have about 24 hours to make the decision whether we're going to do this or not. And Dad and I and my mom and Christy, we sat there for a while, talked about some of the logistics of everything. We decided right then that we were going to run. And so Christy and I, we drove down to Indianapolis the next day, actually even had to call back and say, hey, now am I in District 51 or 52? And we filed that day. We had a friend of ours who, a good now State Senator Dennis Cruz over in Auburn, who walked us right through the process, and we were off and running. Well, we really didn't know what we were getting into, but we did know that we wanted to make a difference for our state and for our country. And we started campaigning. We were running against a 10-year incumbent, and he was a very popular incumbent, very nice man, but we felt that we needed to run against, to hold people accountable. When you're in office, what's wrong with an election? It's good. You need political accountability, because otherwise we see what's happening right now and what's going on is they get comfortable. And so as we started running, we were working hard and going out and knocking on doors and visiting with people. And we got to August, and we got some of our first polling back, and we were down 50 to 24%. And I thought, my goodness, this is just ridiculous. What are we doing? Let's pack it in. Let's go home. There's no reason for us to be out here. But we said, you know what? No, we worked this hard. Let's execute our plan. Let's get out there and finish the job. And by the time we got to September, the polling came back. We had pulled it within 1%. And it was now 37-36. October comes around. We're up 38-37. And we go on to win in November 51-49 by 249 votes. So I'm telling you, it can be done. Well, if you just get out and you work hard, and you know, the environment is right now for people who believe in this country, who believe in the freedom, the values that we have in this country, to do that again and to go back and tell Washington, we don't want we don't want America to be changed. We want to change in Washington rather than in America. And I believe this time is the time for us to stand up and send that message to Washington. So after we first get elected, we're kind of wide-eyed, and now where do we go and what do we do? Trying to find the bathroom and things like that. And you start learning the process. And I tell you, legislation is such a confusing process at first. And just like Scott was saying earlier, watch the left hand, don't pay attention to the right hand. A lot of that goes on, and you have to be paying attention. You have to be alert, and you have to be a part of the process to see what's going on in office. Well, one of the first caucuses that we were in, we find out kind of the consequences or the bad stuff that came from the previous year before we were there. And one of the platforms that Christy and I ran on back in 2002 was that we wanted to clean up government. We needed smaller government. We needed accountability. We wanted to see families be successful. But most of all, we wanted to see corruption rooted out of government. And so we were sitting in our caucus and all of a sudden talking about this 4-to-1 pension match. And for legislators, I thought, boy, 4-to-1. Does anybody in here have a 4-to-1 pension match? No, but the previous year slipped into legislation was a benefit package for legislators, and it was a 4-to-1 pension match. And then, that wasn't it. We thought, all right, this is just ridiculous, but there was even more. We found out that there was a health care package that was going to provide basically free health care for life. Once you serve 6 years and a day, you got free health care. You had to pay 5% of the premium. Who pays 5% of their premium in here? Nobody. It was just unheard of and ridiculous. And so we, at that point, said, this is not right. There were a group of us that said, we're going to fight this until it's taken away. We are not going to be doing this backdoor dealing and giving legislators benefits. You need to be out in the open. You need to be transparent. You need to be honest with people. If we wonder why the public doesn't trust our legislators and our congressmen, it's because of stuff like that. And so as the next election came around, several of those who actually were a part of that were beaten in the election. And we took the majority, and that was one of the first things we did. We had a strong group of people who said no to that sort of pension plan, no to that sort of health care. We eliminated it, and that's one of the things that I believe we need to now go to Washington and look at the same sort of benefits, the same sort of perks that go along with congressmen. We need public servants. We don't need self-serving politicians in this country. And now the time again to send that message to Washington. But it's been such a privilege and such an honor to be serving in the Indiana legislature. Christy and I, we did this together. We said, as a family, we're going to stick together as much as possible. And that's why they're here with me tonight. We came together. When we pulled in, I tell you, it was great because we're like, wow, where do we find a place to park the bus? And, so it took us a little bit longer to find a place. But anyway, so it's so good to see everybody out tonight. But we wanted to do this together as a family. Christy would go down to Indianapolis with me. She would stay down there while Peyton was still little. But now that he's in school and things like that, it's much more difficult to do that. But we want to stay together as much as possible because, our family, my family is my priority. If we lose family over politics, what was the point? And so that's one reason why we've been working hard to stay together, stick together as a family, and do this together, because if we don't, we can let things get in the way of our personal lives. And so we've been working at this. We've been, out campaigning, working hard. And some of the things that we've been able to accomplish in the legislature are things that I'm very, very proud of. Obviously, there's things that go on that it's politics as usual, and you get tired of it. There's times I call home to Christy and say, you're not going to believe this, but there's a lot of things that we've been able to do that are good, just like getting rid of the pension match and getting rid of the health care package. But, just like the Second Amendment, I'm a strong believer in the Second Amendment. It's a Second Amendment for a reason. Right after freedom of speech and freedom of religion. And so I was a co-author with a good friend of mine down in southern Indiana of the lifetime handgun permit. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but it's one that I'm very proud of. I think it's one that, we have been given that, I want to say opportunity because it's our right to bear arms. And I think that it's so important for us to continue that fight and so many other things that we have that goes along with that.